We'd have, happenings. That was in the culture at the time. It was a really cool thing to go to the Seattle Center and sit around the fountain and jam with strangers and pass the joint around and talk about peace and love and sing protest music, anti-war songs, because Vietnam was happening. We need that renaissance again. I think we're ripe for it in our culture today.
Welcome to Music Makes Us. I'm Kathleen Hanna, lead singer of the bands Bikini Kill and Le Tigre. And now I'm also a podcast host. On this show, I'm going to sit down with the most exciting musicians on the planet, and I'm going to get to talk to them about all kinds of things like snacks, perfect lyrics, unforgettable shows they've seen, treasured artifacts, and more. Everyone always says their podcast is for you, the listener, and that's totally true. But this is also for me. I'm looking for community and finding it in my fellow artists. My guest today is a legend, and I was beyond thrilled to get to talk to her. Guitar goddess Nancy Wilson from Heart. I hate it when people say someone's a trailblazer because it makes it seem like Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman is coming around the corner on a carriage, or she's some dusty historical figure. Alongside her sister, Ann Wilson, the lead singer and Heart co-founder, Nancy created a path where there absolutely was none before, and countless other women in rock music have been able to follow her, including myself. Growing up, Heart was one of my all-time favorite bands, and it's been so cool to see how they've evolved musically in the 5 decades since their debut album, Dreamboat Annie. Whether people know each one of their albums inside or out or just love them for their unforgettable hits like Crazy on You, Barracuda, What About Love, or the ever-famous All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You, I don't think anyone would disagree that they're an essential part of the fabric of American music. I mean, if you're looking for bona fides, Heart was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2013. No higher honors for a musician. So to me, that speaks volumes about what they mean, not just to music, but to the larger culture. Nancy and I talked on one of her oh-so-precious days off from tour, and she was hanging out in a hotel in Richmond, Virginia, my old stomping grounds. We had such a fun conversation, just covering wildly divergent topics, and then we got to play the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame artifact game. Her hotel Wi-Fi went on the fritz a couple times, but those technical problems didn't stop us from having a great conversation. Okay, let's take a listen. It's an easy question, but I always have 5 answers to this one. What was the first record that you ever bought with your own money?
Well, we were just babies, in the military, going from town to town, but we always had a record player. And we bought singles a lot at the record stores because they weren't as expensive as 12-inch albums, right? So the kids would always get to pick out a single. And I don't know who did the song, but it was a novelty track called Roadhog. And it was like a beep, beep, get out of my way, Roadhog, do. As a little kid, I was really excited to play it over and over and over. And the other side, one of the other first ones I got was called Tennessee Stud. And I was a horse girl. I still am a horse girl. Had horses after a while, but it was, well, there never was a horse like the Tennessee Stud. And the Tennessee Stud was long and lean, the color of the sun, and his eyes were green. He had the nerve and he had the blood, and there never was a horse like the Tennessee Stud. So novelty music was my first purchase.
No, I mean, some of the stuff that I listened to like the most was like The Streak. Do you remember The Streak in the 70s? Oh, yes, they call it The Streak. Look at that, look at that. Right. And it caused this, like people started streaking all the time at like sports games.
That was really cool. Like, I love stuff like that in the culture so much. When the plank thing happened.
What's the plank thing?
Pre-pandemic, there was like a rage that went around where people were planking, how you make yourself into a table on the ground with your arms and your,
Yeah.
from your hands and toes are touching, and the rest of you is a solid plank in between. It's like a yoga position, plank. But
Yeah.
people were planking on the highway, stopping traffic with planking. People were planking on dining room tables, and they were like posting themselves planking in really odd situations, like really random, out of context kind of stuff like that. Or like the ice water challenge. Remember that?
Yeah. I've been trying to think of
Yeah.
like, what's the new novelty song? And I was like, is the new novelty song a meme or a TikTok challenge? Like maybe that's the new novelty thing
Oh, yeah.
because like I grew up in the era of like CB radios were really big and like there were all those CB radio songs, or like they had a rap song about General Hospital. General Hospital is my favorite sensation. Like where are all of those those songs? But anyways, we're
Well,
sticking.
Weird Al Yankovic was one of the great
Yeah.
novelty songs. He did Beat It. He even made the Beat It song to the Eat It video, and he even had the guitar exploding. If you remember on that video, the solo that Slash had played on the Michael Jackson song "Beat It."
Do you know he's huge
I
now?
know he's
Huge.
huge. I mean, he deserves.
People who are like in their 20s and 30s, like I've asked people what were their top 3 favorite
Right?
concerts, and almost all of them say Weird Al. And they're like, he's a serious musician.
Well,
It's a whole different way of looking at it. I think it's great, but I'm like, where's the female Weird Al?
Maya Rudolph's pretty good with that stuff.
Oh,
She's pretty
yeah.
awesome.
She would have to be the female Weird Al. I think we'll have to nominate her as the female Weird Al to do that kind
Maya
of record.
Rudolph gets my vote.
Yeah. She's such a good singer and so funny. I wanted to talk about one of your very first gigs as a child that was in a church.
Yeah.
And you all did a bunch of covers and you did a Doors song that had some anti-war sentiments and people walked out on you.
Right.
A lot of people would have been like, that's it for me. But it turned out to be a turning point for you. And I'd love to hear you talk about it.
Yeah. Well, our amazing mom was a super volunteer writing the newsletter and stuff, because these were ministers who were way modern thinking ministers. And my parents were counselors in the youth group at the time. So we felt like we had license on the Sunday youth Sunday to bring our talents out there and play a sarcastic version of Crying in the Chapel by Elvis Presley.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Maybe you're the Weird
Saw me
Al.
crying in the chapel. And we're like, la, la, and tears of joy and just really sarcastic. And then we did When the Music's Over, the Doors song that says, cancel my subscription to the resurrection. And so we were like, little rebels out there with our.
You were like punks in the church.
In the church itself on a Sunday morning. And half of the congregation got real quiet and walked out. But it was that time in the culture where you're either kind of hip or you're square, like there was a real division between the old fogies and the new modern thinking people like my parents. So we survived it, but we felt kind of cool because of it. Like years later in the 80s, we did a song called All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You, a Mutt Lange song that was kind of a hit maker from LA type song that we did. And it was our biggest hit ever. And it was pretty well received around the world. We couldn't get behind the story of it because it was like a woman picking up a guy on a rainy night. And it just wasn't, it was more like a country song than a rock song.
Yeah.
So, and they banned it in Ireland because we had changed the gender to have the woman be the one picking.
But it's also about the woman trying to get pregnant because like her husband's infertile. Like it's a soap opera.
Yeah. There was a whole like fascination with like, did she want to get pregnant or did she accidentally get pregnant, but she kept the baby? But in Ireland, they banned it because of the, you know, old school Catholic mentality about wanton women out of wedlock type stuff, you know. So, so we were kind of proud of that too. What, you know, making people leave the church and getting banned in Ireland.
And what did that do to you thinking about performing again, like the next time? Like when you were 12, you were going to
Yeah,
perform
pretty
again.
much that was it. No, we would go to Anne's community college. She was going to art classes mostly at a community college, and the student union. We'd go in there with our guitars and we'd play protest music and Bob Dylan protest anti-war songs and feel cool, you know, as cool as you could feel. And we'd have, you know, happenings. That was in the culture at the time. It was a really cool thing to go to the Seattle Center and sit around the fountain and jam with strangers and pass the joint around and talk about peace and love and sing protest music, anti-war songs because Vietnam was happening. And I think we need this. We need that renaissance again. I think we're ripe for it in our culture today. We need that stuff again.
Yeah, I think more like face-to-face community building things and like even just hearing about going to a progressive
Yeah,
church. You know, I think even if people join a book club right now, like anything to get them out of the house where they're like not just having ideas that are like stewing in their own personal landscape, but they're actually like, here's what I think, and then getting pushback and then, you know, like learning more and learning how other people are dealing with living in this hideous time.
right. Exactly right. And it completely boils down to human contact, you know, not social media sort of leading us down the sheep dip. You know, like you kind of get funneled and vectored into this way of thinking that's just like brainwashing and you're being groomed, you know, to think all of these lies are true. And they can put whatever they want out there, like the cesspool of Facebook and all that kind of bullshit. But actual human contact, that's the real deal. And that's where we can figure out each other's real truth and what we're here for, you know, is the relationships we can actually enjoy with each other in face to face in person instead of through a screen somewhere. And so I think that's sorely needed in our culture today.
As a performer, I've started to say stuff to people like when we play live, I'm like, hey, if you see somebody and you're like, you love their shirt, walk up and tell them. Like maybe you'll make a new friend. Like, because we're so lucky that we're in this time able to bring so many people with different ideas and different ways of being into the same spot to have this kind of communal experience with music. And one of the things that's so beautiful to me about music is that it's not just like heterosexual love songs, or it's not just about like, going on a date with someone. It's like groups of people having an ecstatic experience together that you can't put it in a box of what it is, but people are having an ecstatic experience together at
I
your
see
shows.
that myself too every night, you know, because you know what that live experience feels like. It's electric and it's a conversation, it's a connection that you have that's like this electricity that's kind of cellular. The songs are kind of bigger than you are in that room itself. The songs themselves have become soundtrack to people's lives, you know, obviously. And
Yes.
they define periods of your life where, especially that teenager kind of that era where it was life and death, how much you love that music, you know, you own it. It owns you and defines you. And those are the imprints that songs make on people's lives that they're willing to go get in their car, you know, drive through the snow and park and walk and slip and slide out to the rock show and bring a couple friends or their kids even and have the communal experience. It's very much like a Chautauqua, the religious gathering that they used to have outside in tents where the fireflies would go on and they would come together out of their dwellings, and gather for the inspiration of something bigger than all of us, right? So I think that's what music is all about. And it's the songs that live bigger than, larger than life. But still to be able to pull it off and get out there and do my rocker size every night, I'm just super grateful. It's a million drills to do this, my job at the loud office. What you get paid for is not the show, it's the travel, the bad pizza that you have to endure, and those hotels where the curtains are broken and it's 5 in the morning and it's getting light. You don't have a hair clamp, for the curtains to lie
Oh yeah, I know about the
all
hair
that
clip.
stuff, all those beautiful, glamorous moments like that. So, yeah.
I was thinking about Crazy on You. And when you do the acoustic guitar, like long intro, it's always felt like this positive fuck you to the world. Like not a negative fuck
No.
you, like I hate you all,
No.
but it's like to all the haters in the world, you like around the time when I first heard of you a few years after this, but I took guitar lessons when I was like 9, and the boys laughed so hard at my version of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star that I didn't go back.
Oh, you were shamed.
I was shamed, but then one of the producers on this show was telling me that she heard Crazy on You is her jam, and that she heard Crazy on You and she went out and got a guitar. And now she's making this podcast and works at the Rock Hall of Fame and helped curate revolutionary women in rock and all this stuff. So, and like the first time I heard Crazy on You, I was in the back of a brown pickup truck being driven around. I just always remember like where I was when like the biggest songs of my life happened. And it's really wild. But when I've seen you do the acoustic guitar intro, I'm always like, you never see that. You just never see at a rock show a really long, amazing acoustic guitar intro. And I was wondering, do you still change it every night? And is it nerve-wracking to change it? Or have you come up with this is the one I'm going to do?
Well, it's a really cool intro, and it came out of the time where bands like Yes, that we were influenced by in that era, or Rush, bands that had all these long musical departures or acoustic intros into songs, that was our theory, was to provide like musical parts that would have recurring motifs. Like in Dreamboat Annie, there was the instrumental motif later with the same theme that came back later. And so it was a real musical idea. Starting out as a young guitar player, about 9 years old, I didn't have a sexual identity attached to any musical prowess that I was already, starting to gain as a kid. You're just a little person and you're like, I want to be Paul Simon, I want to be Neil Young, I want to be the Beatles, I want to be them, guy or not guy, girl or not girl. So there was no definition formed in advance about becoming proficient as a player. So luckily, by the time I was about 21, when I was starting to have sexual awareness, figure out who I was that way, I was already working on stuff like that. And I was already in the band. We're making our first album. And I was like, I want to be Steve Howe of Yes and make this cool, or Paul Simon. I borrowed from Paul Simon's song called Angie that was kind of a similar clippy little instrumental that in the key that I knew Crazy on You was going to be in, and just a little introduction. But it's so cool to me now how I do the first part and people already know what it is. Like, name that tune immediately. And
Yeah. No, it's like everyone's running to the dance floor. If somebody's having a soda, they're like running
Yeah,
back
so
in.
I never
Yeah.
feel like I feel like I'm showing off for sure because I kind of made that thing happen. The acoustic ethic that I brought into the hard rock band Heart kind of defines a lot of what's the signature sound of Heart. But I just feel like a show off, you know?
I love that you're showing off. I feel like that's such a thing that gets pushed on so many women of like, oh, if you show
Yeah.
off or, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's always like, oh, well, I can't do that. I have to be humble. I have to give everybody else credit for my own accomplishments. And it's
Yeah.
like, I just think to see somebody do something really well, you're not bragging. You're just doing something
Yeah.
really good. There's this whole idea of the acoustic guitar can be this like feminine singer-songwriter, which is like, I love singer-songwriter stuff, but I love the fact that you brought it into this hard rock
Yeah.
arena. And I know other people had done that before, but I think the way that you did it, it created a new sound for the band that hadn't been heard before.
Yeah.
And I think it's just remarkable.
It was just sort of a byproduct, the fact that I was not a guy doing it. Later, that I kind of understood that it was more important because I wasn't the guy doing it. It was a cool like bonus that came out of the whole deal. When Eddie Van Halen passed away, that's so long back, I was working on a solo album. And I decided I'm doing another acoustic thing. I have to force myself to do a a song for Eddie, an acoustic song for Eddie, and I tell a story at the show about how I gave him an acoustic guitar one time, and he played me this thing over the phone that was gorgeous after he stayed up all night working on this acoustic thing. And so I returned the favor and made him a song called For Edward that I play now in the show. So I'm kind of continuing the acoustic legacy, I guess you'd say, even today.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the lyrics. I know it's like an older song for you, but I actually didn't ever realize that it's like kind of a political love song.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of about, and I mean, stop me if I'm wrong, but I mean, obviously it's my interpretation. And like you were saying before, the songs live forever and the songs become, maybe they're your children at first, but they become everybody's
Yeah.
children. But in going through the lyrics in preparation for this interview, I was like, wait a minute. It's all about the world's on fire. There's war everywhere. And the only solace I find is with you.
Right.
I've been trying to write songs recently and I was like, it answered this huge question for me because I was like, how do you write a song during a time of fascism and you know what I mean, from a subjective place? And I find the song so successful
Yeah.
because it's from a very subjective place and there's all this terrible stuff in it, but it also doesn't feel like I'm going to hide with you and be an ostrich. You and I are going to look out onto the world and be a force for
Wow.
change. And I'm just wondering had you ever heard another song from that point of view, or can you think of one? Because I know you have such extensive musical knowledge. And I was like, what other song does that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think of one off the bat. I mean, when you think of stuff like songs from the wars, like World War One, maybe there's love songs, songs that talk about, it's regardless of the world out there, we have each other to cling to. But I think in the lyrics to Crazy on You are really exceptional because I'll give her the credit, she wrote all those words. I mean, I put the music with it, but when I was sick with a real high fever when we lived in Canada for a while, starting out, baby band stuff, and she came to me and I was in bed and she was like, check this out, I just wrote this. And it was the words to Crazy on You. And it was like, Oh my God, we're in wartime, and this is like I'm so frustrated with how the world feels today that all I want to do is make love with you, go crazy on you. Just forget the world for a minute. Just have human contact and make love right now, in a war zone. You make the statement of love, you make sexual love, against what the world is up to, you know to push back. And so it's a military ethic, really, against against what's wrong with everything.
Yeah, it's almost like a make love, not war, but I hadn't even thought about it in that way. I just realized that the song also is really sneaky
Yeah,
because it's so catchy that you don't even know how political it is until you like get deep in it and then you're like,
yeah,
oh wow.
yeah, yeah.
But speaking of the military, I know that you are a self-proclaimed military brat. And I was actually a union kid. My dad was a pipe fitter welder and worked in the union. And so we moved like every 3 years since I was a kid for his job. And for me, it sucked. Like, at a certain point, I was like, I'm just not going to try to make friends anymore because I'm going to move away from them. And it just became like, I'm just going to play with my Barbies till I'm 15. It was a little bit too late. But then I was like, you know what? There was a real upside to it. And I was wondering what you found to be the upsides of, moving around a lot as a kid and how that prepared you for tour.
For me, it was being the youngest of three daughters, 4 years apart each of us. It was harder for Lynn and Anne, but Lynn's the oldest, Anne's the middle. And I'm being the youngest, it was much easier for me to move all the time. They moved more times before I was born than after I was born and stuff. And they had to say goodbye to their friends in school and try to make new friends and be the new kid in town that gets bullied and traumatized and all that stuff. And not being the skinny kid, she was always big, and so she had the worst of it all, moving from town to town and being the fat chick everywhere she went. And so, with braces, no less. And so, it was easier for me to make those transitions. But I do think it prepared all of us for the touring life. Because Lenny, the oldest sister, actually was our wardrobe person. She toured with us for most of our career. And so, the three sisters of us were always moving since the military years. But we set up camp and we had each other to lean on. And, we're a little fighting unit. Pull the wagons in a circle wherever we went. And, we found strength, I think, in the ethic of the military family that moves, the family that moves together. And our family was really tight. I mean, I used to be embarrassed in high school, especially during the human potential movement of it all, where my mom and dad were counselors at the cool youth group sessions that we had and all that stuff, because everybody else's families had cool divorces and stuff going on, like they had a reason to have the angst.
You're like, where's the alcoholism and abuse that I need?
Where's my big angst coming from? I don't really have an excuse, to have all the teenage angst that I want to have. I want to be cool and sullen and sad like them, And of course, the hormone poisoning always, puts you there anyway. But we had a tight fighting unit as a family, and we had music as a family, which was always the best escape hatch. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, everybody was musical. So the Von Trapps,
The metal Von Traps.
wherever we went, we had a stereo system and a record player. We just hauled it all around the world with us. And we always had music playing in the living room for dinner, candlelight dinners. Embarrassment of riches in my case.
I had kind of a pretty difficult, dysfunctional childhood,
Oh,
and
you're so lucky. Yeah.
I know. No, but the thing was, I was like, like me 20 years ago would have been like, oh, Nancy, I'm so jealous of you. But me now, I realize everybody has problems. Like it doesn't, and it's how you deal with them. And part of the thing that that I feel like I've looked at throughout your career is that when you've been given straw, you've consistently turned it
Yeah.
into gold. And I think that's something that people from dysfunctional families do constantly and something I really relate to in your work. And I don't think you need to have that dysfunction to be that, like when you were just talking about circling up the wagons with your
Yeah.
sisters. And it's like giving you a kind of resilience where it's, you all were given a bunch of sexist shit and turned it into one of the greatest rock songs of all time, Barracuda. And that is a lemons to lemonade, straw into gold story.
That's a cool perspective. I didn't think of it that way, really. But that's very true. I think, having a strong mom and having each other as sisters out there in the field, in the male dominated world of shame, that we had to kind of deal with. We had each other to kind of like, no, we're military, we're a troop, and we have the same ethic, and it's bullshit. We don't care. We're barging through with what we want to do. When somebody says, "Oh, you need to lose weight so you could see light between your thighs."
That is
Fuck
so
you.
weird.
I've got a normal body. I'm not skinny. I'm not built like a man. So going through clubs when I first started playing, aside from my solo stuff, I was already playing as a kid by myself, but then I finally joined Ann's band after I went to college a little bit. I knew I would always join Ann's band, but I waited to go to college for a minute. Then I went to Ann's band and I was about 21 and was like walking through these drunk ass taverns where we were playing, and a cute chick walking through a drunk tavern who, you had to have your shit together. You have to walk with purpose with your eyes. Don't look left, don't look right. Walk with purpose straight ahead with your eyes down to the back of the room to get outside, to go have a cigarette or whatever you're going to do. And, that was kind of a military ethic that saved my ass getting into the business, where the men were like, "Wee-hee," and just, "Hey, baby."
Yeah, no, I'm laughing at it now, but I've heard show us your tits like
Yeah, well, there you go.
more
Yeah.
times than, I thought it was my middle name for a while.
It's just like the asshole license that anybody that has a few any guys that have drinks think they got. But I mean, just I don't know, just a little proud, and just I felt above it, so I could just ignore it and get past it. Just don't pay attention. Don't look left, don't look right. Walk with purpose.
You said something about like, I survived on androgyny and a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And I so related to that. The thing of being like, I'm just a person. Like, I would just look at my hands before I went out on stage and I'd be like, I'm just a person. I'm not a woman doing the thing, even though, the work that I've always made is explicitly feminist and stuff. I was like, I'm a person. The sun's going to rise tomorrow, whether this show sucks or people call me names or whatever. But I have things where, like, and I wonder if this has happened to you, where it's because so many times it was like, your band sucks, you're terrible. And like, we were really different from you all because we weren't super technically proficient. And that was the point.
No, but you were doing really cool, you pushing back, individuating.
Yeah, and it was punk music. Like, the whole idea was like, we got up and we weren't great. And then other girls would be like, oh, I can get up and not be great. Because all these dudes are just getting up on stage and improvising and trying stuff. And we saw our friends on the underground who were really proficient and they still got
Oh
shit.
yeah.
And they still had, the guitar player who I work with now, Sarah, is incredible. And there's always guys standing on her side of the stage staring at her fingers to watch if she fucks up. You can be great and people are going to be assholes, and you can be a band that's more about the politics and less about being tight
Yeah.
and get that shit. And so it's just sort of like, let's show that we're kind of just brats. We were just bratty punk girls who wanted to push our way to the front and like be a part of a scene that we felt not included in. And I think that it's a whole different way. But I actually want to kind of change the subject because I'm my menopause brain.
Let me respond. Let me respond a little bit first, because the Riot Girl thing was just kick ass when it happened.
I didn't even know you knew
Of course,
about
I did. I'm
it.
from Seattle.
I always think people are like
I'm
wouldn't
from
know about it. That's so
Seattle.
cool.
Sleater Kinney, L7, all those guys, and you guys, and Bikini Kill, all of it that you guys were doing at the time was really cool to me, because we just came straight out of the video MTV 80s hairspray thing with all the spandex and the stilettos and the bustiers and the cocaine kind of ego driven corporateness that got really uncomfortable for us, having been the hippie chicks coming out the 70s, right? So when we got back to Seattle after the 80s, like overnight, it was Nirvana, it was the Riot Girl scene, it was all this great garage punk ethic that was coming back again, to where you heard guitars again. It wasn't banks and banks of layer cake, wedding cake, keyboard production, it was the real deal all over again. So thank you for that. And I appreciated it. And I was a big fan.
Well, I went to your recording studio, Bad Animals, in the 90s with Joan Jett. She got me a gig singing backups on a metal church
Oh,
record.
nice.
And I spent a lot of time in the hallway pretending I was trying to find the bathroom so that I could see if you if you or Anne were there. Cause I was like, what do you mean Heart owns this?
Oh man, that's so
Just being in that building and knowing that you all at some point were in that building.
that was the same building that had a small studio that we did Barracuda in. That's where we recorded
Yeah.
Barracuda. Yeah.
I found that out
Yeah.
later. But at the time I was just like, if I bump in
That's so cute.
to Nancy or Anne, I'm going to lose my shit.
It's adorable.
But it was really exciting. And I was wondering if that's how I know you like started hanging out with a lot of musicians from Seattle during that time. And is that how you met like Chris Cornell? And is that how you met a bunch of other musicians that you started hanging out
My
with?
best friend, still Kelly Curtis, was the manager of Mookie Blaylock and Mother Love Bone before that, and then Pearl Jam later. And he was still my best friend in the world. And when Andrew Woods died from Mother Love Bone, he was like, "You got to come and meet these people." And so I brought my dogs, and we went to Seattle. I had a farm in Woodinville, and we went to Seattle with our couple of our dogs, and to cheer all these people up at Andrew Wood's house. And we met Chris Cornell, and we met, the guys from Alice in Chains, and the guys from Screaming Trees were there. That whole scene was basically there that night.
Except me.
I wish you'd been there.
I wish I was there.
But then, we started hanging out more at Anne's house on Capitol Hill. And, one of the first jams, me and Jerry Cantrell, we thought they were going to just hate us because we were hair bands, like dinosaur hair bands from the 80s. But he said, show me the intro to Mistral Wind, which was a really cool dissonant kind of musical part. And I was like, you know that song, or one of our 70s songs? He goes, I love that song, got a shot to me. So it was just like the brotherhood we got to walk into after we kind of left LA, the MTV LA 80s vibe, and went home to Seattle, where the quote grunge thing was starting to just break wide open and explode. And the joke at the time was, yeah, I went to Seattle to score heroin, but all I got was a record contract. I don't know if you ever heard that Seattle joke, but
I didn't.
that's pretty good.
I didn't. It's funny because I thought they would hate me thing. It's to anyone but you, that sounds wild because especially as musicians, like we all go through phases. We all have like good records, bad records, great songs, songs.
Yeah.
Like it's like we're compulsive gamblers. Like people might like the song that you hate and it becomes a hit, or every so often that thing happens, which is sort of the Nirvana thing where like the commerce and the art meet at the perfect time, and it's like something you really believe in and love, actually really hits a cultural
Yeah.
nerve. And, it's those amazing moments. And I think that for a lot of those bands in Washington State, it's like, we didn't have a blueprint for fame or any of that stuff. And it came very fast, record companies coming to Seattle and looking at like baby bands, and people hadn't really developed yet.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, I didn't want to be on a major label because like the only person who I knew who was on a major label died. I wasn't like, oh, I want to sign up, sign me
Yeah.
up. I think also it's been really interesting talking to you about, your family unit and growing up in a military family and then having both of your sisters with you on tour. I didn't feel mentally like I could survive the industry.
You're lucky that you knew that about yourself. I mean, because, the guys in Pearl Jam with Eddie Vedder, they were like reluctant rock stars. They weren't really ready, I don't think, for the the harsh, glary spotlight that hit them, and the whole bandwagon of the fashion of it all and all that stuff is so like extreme, they were in it for the music and they were in it for the love of the personal aspect of what music is to you when you get to play music with your brotherhood and your sisterhood or your people that you love and you want to communicate. You have a commune going with your musical, your musical partners like Pro Jam. They could just play
Yeah.
with each other and they could just go off and do all this amazing stuff. Anyway, they were like they just didn't want to go get those awards. They didn't want to go to the MTV of it all and do all that MTV awards show stuff and I really had great respect for that and understanding for that because I don't think anything really prepares you for that spotlight necessarily.
I wanted to get back to what you were talking about, finding community and also about how fame can be really stressful. And especially if you're somebody who you're like, I'm here for the music. Like, I'm doing this for the music, which I feel like you're one of those people who's like really just born to be a musician and to be a performing musician, a touring musician, a working
Yeah.
musician. You said something to the effect of, well, there's this time where there was like, they wanted me to be like Farrah Fawcett,
Yeah.
which I was of age when like the Farrah Fawcett posters were everywhere. And you said something about how like, if I have to be a poster girl for a minute so that I can get on stage and play my guitar, oh well.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was so, and you said it a long time ago, and I was like, that's so mature. Like, it took me till I was in my 40s to be like, I have to go do a photo shoot. Big fucking deal. Stop being a baby. Like you're getting free press, and like, how else are people going to know about it? And what kind of snob am I that I think everybody has to be on the underground scene to be able to access the work me and my friends are making? I really stand by the way that I made music when I was younger and protecting my mental health.
Yeah.
But now that I'm older and I'm still, touring and stuff, I'm fine with doing the work part of it, Like
I really like that.
I think back then I was like, oh, well, that's so sellout. But now I'm sort of like really thinking of that quote. And it's, look, if I have to, put on a bunch of eyeliner
Yeah.
to do this thing that I love doing, what's the big deal?
I guess I was a little bit mature for my age when I just kind of, I'll swallow this pill, I'll be a poster girl because I'm born to do this thing, And so that is the absolute truth. I wasn't real comfortable in it, in that role of doing that. And some of those pictures today are hysterical because the hair is like wider than the screen itself and taller and wider hair than it should be. That ain't happening in nature, I'll tell you that much. But so it's the rock and roll lioness goddess with, the costumery of it all. But it was never natural to us coming out of the late 60s and the Beatles era and then 1975 was Dreamboat Annie, the first album. Luckily, made a mark, and we kept going from there on the roller coaster ride. But Then the 80s kind of hit along with the cocaine era, where it became really ego driven and it wasn't about the greater good. It was about money. It was about the golden idol. It was about sex, sexy, 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 sexy. Sell, 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 you know. And so that's kind of where we felt like we needed to use some of those tools that were in fashion at the time to survive the era so we could continue with our career because we'd already outlived the lifespan of the average rock band by that point. 5 years.
Well, and the average girl band was like 3.
Right, right.
Like we felt like we made it to 7 years and we were always like, if we can make it to, 5 years, if we can make it to 6 years, and I think part of it was like dealing with sexism. And then part of it was like internal stuff and,
Trying to make a living if you're in a band, I mean, and or having a family, all that stuff is super complicated and really stressful and really difficult, to be a woman and try to have a career, a traveling career, and you balance it with your own private life and relationships, all of that.
yeah, I mean, I just was like, I'm not going to have a private life
Yeah.
for like 25 years. And then finally I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I have no private life. I need a private life. I have no hobbies other than this. I have nothing I do besides this. But I finally did. I like gardening.
I do too.
I have a
Yeah,
dog.
me too. A guy like cooking.
You were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You have a Lifetime Achievement Grammy. You sang lead on Heart's first #1 single. You're in a band that has one of the most important legacies in rock and roll. But these are all public facing forms of success. And I'm wondering about the tiny moments of triumph in your career, like the ones that meant the most to you.
Oh, that's a really cool question. I guess the tiny moments are, for me, where I feel like I've successfully, sort of conquered some territory for myself is as a guitar player and as a musician, where I feel like I can keep writing music. I've been writing new music. I'm working with a collaborator, Sue Ennis, who we wrote a lot of stuff with Heart before. And the inspiration of the muse has not left me. So when I find the muse is still in my life and I can go over here and I can pick up an instrument and find something that sounds interesting and cool and record it onto my phone in my notes or whatever. That's the small victories that I really take seriously because it's as important as it's ever been to me to have that connection with the muse.
I feel exactly the same way, that when you can follow kind of the trail of creativity in your head and you start seeing it lay out a path for you, and then you start running down that path, and then you start seeing a song take shape and you're letting it be. I think also as I've gotten older, I've been able to be like, it's okay that I don't know what this is. I just like this little thing and I'm going to sit here and keep working on it until it tells me what it wants to be.
This little part feels good and sounds good, so why not let myself go down that road? And it's the same thing that connects you to, the whole bigger picture of why you started out in first place, why you chose the alternative life, to begin with, which is the harder life to choose. It's the road less traveled.
I just love that like we could be doing stuff in totally different locations in slightly different genres. And I think that that's a really important thing, that like it doesn't have to be like we all have to do everything the same way. We don't all have to be like have the same exact ideas, but we can be inspiring to each other.
That's the high school mentality where it's we're different from them. It's the divisive thinking, that's so obviously so unnecessarily prevalent today's culture. But I think what is happening in like the younger people that are coming up today, musicians that are starting to come up now, are kind of tired of the automated loop vibe. Kind of can't tell
Yeah.
what the words are, but they sound kind of the same kind of music. And I think people are looking for the authenticity again, where you can have a statement that's not necessarily exactly what you want to hear, that makes you want to shop, like music to go shopping by or whatever. It's,
Could you make a song about shopping
yeah,
and use the word girl in
yeah.
it? Well, you've been hanging out with Boy Genius and Chaperone, right?
Yeah, well, I know these guys, and they were Heart fans too, which was so cool for me to know that. And I got to go up and play with Chapel. I played Barracuda with Chapel on my big purple sparkle guitar in New York the other week, and she's the best. And Lucy Dacus says she'll sing a song with me on my album. I'm trying to make a duets thing happen pretty soon, and they're just like they're game. They're really intelligent, intuitive, authentic musicians.
I heard Chapel do Barracuda in Stockholm, and I was like losing my
Yeah, I
mind.
know.
She did it so well.
I think that's the real renaissance, is what's authentic, where people, spend the time learning how to play, actually play and sing for real, and
Yeah.
maybe a little bit out of tune once in a while sounds more authentic than auto tune. It's stuff like that. You could feel it kind of swinging back. The pendulum is swinging.
Yeah. And also analog and craft and things that are in person. I think that people are getting really exhausted from
Yeah.
the digital age. But even though we're talking about, the things that really matter, not just like the external success, I am really interested because I've never had this experience and I probably never will. What did it feel like when you got the call that you're getting inducted into the Rock Hall of
Oh,
Fame?
it was really cool. I mean, it's like I don't have the Seattle musicians disease like Pearl Jam had, where I I don't want to take that award. I want the award because I feel like me and my sister and this band has completely earned it, like in spades. Like how many bad pizzas does it take? How many miles do you have to go? How many bad hotels do you have to endure? Before you get recognized for still showing up, on time and doing a good show for, oh yeah, 50 years. And so, yeah, I thought it was just the coolest ever thing. That I'll take it, and I put it on my grandmother's piano that's still in my piano room, and I liked seeing it sitting there in my house. It's just okay. So the recognition for the blood, the sweat, and the tears.
Absolutely. Now we're going to go from one Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee to another as we play the artifact game. We're going to see an artifact from the Rock Hall's collection. And after a series of clues, we're going to try to guess which artist the artifact belongs to. Okay, so let's take a look at them.
Oh, that's a beautiful Gibson Dove jumbo guitar, acoustic guitar with lots of weather on it.
And it's got like a pattern on the pick guard that almost looks like, I can't tell if it's flowers or like almost a constellation.
Yeah, it's got a flower pattern akin to the dove, but I would guess that would be tortoiseshell pickguard before they banned actual tortoiseshell pickguards.
It could be anybody who plays it.
I would guess there would be a country artist who would play that guitar. An older country star would have played that guitar. Most likely a man, because it's a large jumbo sized body of the guitar. But a lot of people played those guitars for a lot of years because it looks kind of beat up. I think it's an older one. But I guess I might need a clue.
Yeah, let's get a clue.
Right?
1999. But it's the year that the artist was using this instrument. So I guess this was an artist who was big in 1999.
Okay. An artist who was big at the end of the 90s.
I don't know anything about guitars except for that one light blue one that you have that I watched you talk about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
It's so pretty. The flowers on it and stuff. It's amazing. What's that called?
The blue guitar with flowers on it?
It's like a light blue acoustic guitar. And you saw someone playing it and got really obsessed with it.
Oh, yeah. That was an Ovation carbon top. Yes, like a hippie guitar. Yeah, that was so somebody in 1999. Would it be somebody like Katie Lang or somebody like Dolly Parton would have played it, even though it's pretty large for a woman to play? God, I'm kind of drawing some blanks here, but 1999 is a good clue. And if that guitar was used on a real hit song, it would have had to have a good acoustic guitar part in it. Maybe somebody like REM would have played it.
Yeah.
REM, because they had amazing stuff that with a lot of acoustic sound. Okay, maybe another clue.
Yeah.
This artist got her big break singing backup for Michael Jackson's Bad World Tour in 1987. This guitar was used in the music video for the lead single off her fourth album, Sheryl Crow.
Sheryl Crow. Yeah.
Gotta be
that clue I would have never gotten that.
Oh, wow.
And I just watched the Lilith Fair documentary that she was in last night.
That is so cool. She's pretty burly to play a big jumbo like that. I gotta just give her some credit.
I know.
But I knew that she had country, affectations at least. Yeah. Wow, Sheryl Crow.
Oh, let's hear the audio clue to see what song she played it on, because she had so many hits around that time.
Yeah, for sure. Her acoustic stuff, amazing. I got to play with her one time.
Is it going to be all I want to do is have some fun? Or
is it Strong Enough to Be My Man?
I love that song. I love it.
That song makes me jealous that I didn't write that song, one of those songs.
You know, the songs that always make me jealous are the ones that have that perfect kind of stall moment in them, where it's like you're like on the edge of your seat, or they have like subject matter where you're like, you don't think it's going to go in that direction. I think it's the clever turn of the lyric of how she equates like vulnerability with strength.
Oh, God.
As opposed to, can you be the fireman that carries me out of the fire?
Yeah, no, the white knight, as opposed to, are you strong enough to love me with all of my peccadillos and faults?
And with my success.
Because I'm a complicated. I mean, there's, artists are born and they can't help it, So are you strong enough to be with an artist?
Okay, here comes the clue to see if we're right. I don't know what that song is.
I want to soak up the sun.
Yeah.
I think it's that song.
So that must be the one that she played it with. And because you won the award, you get to go have a day off from tour. That's your prize.
Yay.
I've had so much fun talking to you. I want to talk to you for hours and hours, and I really hope we get to hang out at some point.
Yeah, we should do that.
I will sneak into one of your shows.
Okay, well, say the word. We'll put out the red carpet for you.
Oh, I would love it.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for this episode. Thank you so much to my guest, Nancy Wilson. For more about Music Makes Us, you can follow the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And subscribe to future windows on Substack for exclusive content. Music Makes Us is a production of Radiotopia and Talkhouse for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The production team includes Jocelyn Gonzalez and Morgan Flannery of PRX Productions, Shelby Morrison, Jenny Thomas, Melanie Wiggins, and Risa Gurkey, with special thanks to Dawn Waite, Sarah Deely, and Ben Adair. Yuri Lasorda is the showrunner, and Nick Dawson is our editor. Executive producers are Liz Peshkus, Ian Wheeler, Audrey Mardovich, and Uli Boita-Cohen. Publicity is led by J.R. Johnson, Sarah Avron, and David Catrone. And on the marketing team, Mike Russo, Maggie Gorville, and Carter Lou McElroy. We'll be back soon with more Music Makes Us. Tell all your friends and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.